Faculty meeting. Okay. There are, we have a lot of them? Oh, four. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I wonder if everyone will stand. We'd like to call the meeting to order and stand for Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Lauer.
Here.
Alderman Sage.
Here.
Alderman Milamwe.
Here.
Alderman Stearns.
Here.
Alderman Painter.
Here.
Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman Black.
Here.
Alderman Fruin.
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. We're going to go ahead and move right to public comment, and we have 4 people. And again, if you could come forward and state your name, Patricia Martin first. Patricia, are you here? Oh, there you are. Yes. Thank you. And you have up to 3 minutes.
As we approach National Bullying Awareness Prevention Month in October, I would like to comment again about my further development of material regarding abusive treatment of old and young. I continue to focus particularly on the amendment of existing laws and or the creation of new ones to increase penalties for such treatment, as well as more careful selection of administrators and staff via in-depth background checks and periodic training and retraining sessions so they can develop a thorough understanding of their fields. A crisis is the test of any administration, and mismanagement of such can result in adverse effects on the entire institution itself. And we have the recent ISU situation as a case in point. I'm particularly excited about participating in the Public Safety Working Group and will hopefully be working on projects with the help of other members that will be dealing with the resolution of such concerns in our city and county. The effects of bullying on victims young and old can be devastating, even if there is no physical contact, resulting in actual physical pain as well as in shock and disbelief. Other effects include headaches, tremors, nightmares, and fear of the familiar as well as the unknown, for many victims know their aggressors personally. I have spoken to victims of various ages. One, a young girl who left Southern Illinois to relocate successfully to Bloomington because of high school experiences there. Moreover, if retaliation is attempted, victims must deal with anger, denial, and even public mockery from the aggressors and their colleagues. Therefore, fear is an operative word and must be overcome by insisting on and continuing to develop preventative measures. These are my own experiences, which is why I'm speaking to you today. And I want to thank again the Law and Justice Center Library for their help with this presentation, and also all of you, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Alton Franklin.
My name is Alton Franklin. I live at 508 Patterson Drive here in Bloomington. Really, the only thing on my mind tonight is because I'm kind of reflecting back on past results. I don't care if it's up front, out back, or on the side. I love jazz. And I have waited and hoped and had my hopes dashed a couple times already. I'm hoping we finally see this thing fly. I think there's a kind of a misunderstanding with regards to appropriate businesses for the downtown area. I really feel that a venue like a jazz club is not your typical, you don't put it on the list of pub crawls. I mean, it really is a much more sedate, a much more, if you will, refined type of musical style, as well as clientele. I've loved it since I was a kid, but one of the things I notice is it is a more typically mature audience, even though younger ones, though, have a tendency to have very moderate attitudes. They don't drink as much. They seem to retain their intelligence better. There's just something about the music. But I understand the misgivings that a number of folks have with regards to it. But I hope you can take a look at it in a kind of a different light, a different perspective, if you will, to say this is something that could take us one step closer because it's a move up. It's not a move to the side. It's not expanding what I would term a negative influence. And I really believe that it could be a major thing for Bloomington. I'd love to see Front Street turn into Beale Street. I think it'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Donnie Heron.
My name is Donnie Heron. I live at 1504 Julie Drive in Bloomington. Thanks for the opportunity. I don't want to talk about anything on the agenda. I want to talk about the comprehensive plan that McLean County Regional Planning has been tasked with preparing the update. I spoke with Mayor Renner about this briefly just on Friday night at the Mayor's Forum. I also spoke with Vasu about this last week and spoken to several other people about the issue. I'm kind of concerned about a couple of issues. Some of you know that I'm pretty involved in some of the planning issues and development stuff that goes on in this community. I'm certainly concerned about things that go on downtown and concerned with the downtown. As I continue to monitor the progress of this and educate myself about all the elements and the components of this thing, what I've discovered is it's very broad and it's very in depth. The scope of this is quite immense, and I think it pretty much addresses about every facet of our day-to-day life, except maybe Monday Night Football or NASCAR. It does address soccer fields, however. My concern here is that because of the scope of this thing and the expanse of this plan and everything that's involved in this, as I shared with Mayor Renner the other night, I would like to see, and I don't mean this to be critical at all, but I would like to see a little bit more participation from the council. I know that there's a couple of people that have been assigned to a couple of the groups. I know that there's a lot of working groups, and there's steering committees and so on and so forth, and there's public outreach efforts, and there's public input. However, based on what I have learned, what I've discovered, I think that that's still limited in scope, and I think just based on the fact that everything this plan covers, I think that for the best interest of everybody's constituents and for the community, that our council should be involved in this a little bit more. And so I would like to see that happen. And if anybody has any further questions or would like to know more detail about some of the stuff or some of my concerns, everybody knows how to get a hold of me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Dorothy Deeney.
I'm Dorothy Deeney, and I live at 711 East Empire. And with me tonight are 3 other members who also live in the old East Side neighborhood. So we just wanted to acknowledge that we all came and decided I could be the one to speak tonight. So we've lived there for 36 years, long before Constitution Trail was built. We're now celebrating 25 years of Constitution Trail and the success that it has been. The section of the trail between Empire and Locust has been an eyesore from the beginning. Development was allowed to encroach along this section, and it was years before the park department even put some trees along part of it at least. The section from Empire to Walnut is totally bare on the east side of the trail. Big patch of very tall grass is what's there at the moment. We would like the city to resolve the issues with this part of the trail and develop it into a park. For many years, we've understood that a park would happen, but it's been 25 years and we haven't seen anything yet. So that's why we figured anniversary is a good time to come forward. Our neighborhood doesn't have a park really within walking distance. Franklin Park, you're still crossing Clinton, Fell Park, you're crossing Empire, and if you've got children, neither of those is really easy to access. Okay, and if we did a park along this section of the trail, then it would be long and narrow. But just this weekend, I was watching something on TV, and they were showing the park in New York, which is built on an abandoned elevated rail. And it's beautiful and full of people. And it's benches and trees alongside and people. And that's it was great to see. I really enjoyed it. Okay, trees add to the beauty of much of our trail, just not our section. Okay, the trail is also unsafe because the trail moves from the rail bed to the alley from just south of Empire, and that's what that map is. That's just a Google map, but it shows where an abrupt 90-degree turn moves that trail over, and then it goes along the alley for 1 block, then back over to the rail bed again. Also in those photos, you can see the shortcuts that people take. And as a matter of fact, one of our neighbors was trying to walk on the trail and had an accident at one of those crossovers there because of somebody taking the shortcut instead of the way that the trail goes. And just last week, Alderwoman Stearns and several of us were walking along the trail, and there by Empire, there was a terrible stench, and I walked over to the garbage can to see if it was food or whatever was in there, and it couldn't see anything. However, I just about got hit by a bicycle. If he hadn't yelled at me, I would have gotten hit. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dorothy. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move right along to the consent agenda. And one of the items we have been asked to pull from the consent agenda before I ask the council wants to pull something is item 6J. The Leslie Smith family, someone just gave birth this evening. So they would ask us to pull that. I'm assuming there would, perhaps for consideration at the next council meeting. Are there any other items on the consent agenda that any single member of the council would like to pull? Anyone? Alderman Fruin?
Mayor, you might be able to answer this very quickly without being pulled. I'll ask you that.
Sure.
I asked a couple questions early, 6D, and I appreciate the response I got on that. And then on 6I, there's a reference to the fact that there were some mayoral council member discussions, and I'm not sure I recall that, and maybe I've missed
I tell
that.
you what, if you'd like us to, if you really have questions, then how about if we just pull those and then we can approve it,
Well,
except for those, or?
I will say this, that I've supported this in the past, and I plan to support it tonight, so I don't want to prolong that if there's not anything meaningful that I missed in that discussion, so
Okay.
that's up to you.
Under 6J, or excuse me, 6I, I was referring to conversations that I had had with the council a year ago in July when Mr. Gaston came to talk to me about establishing a new jazz club a few blocks away near the Castle Theater. And I knew that there had been concerns about the previous application. And I believe I talked to all of the 9 aldermen at that time, a year ago, July, and nobody seemed to voice any strong objections of that location, just not in the 45600 block. So I think that's what I was referring to. I had subsequent conversations with a couple of other aldermen as this was coming up when Mr. Gaston came to talk to me and it was at Liquor Commission. But I didn't go a full pass around recently because it seemed pretty clear a year ago. I believe it was July.
Okay. That helps me very much. I'm comfortable with that. I just wasn't sure if I was missing some recent conversation. So given that, I have no intention to pull it.
Right. Okay. And then did you have a question on D?
D's been answered. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then, if we could have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, except for item 6J.
So moved.
Moved by Alderwoman Painter. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderwoman Schmidt and Alderman Fruin. Did you
And
want
Mayor, I would like to add that with regard to the consent and the regular agenda, I have not received any monies or financial benefits from any of the individuals or organizations referenced in these specific agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And I think we should be go. Good. Okay. We have 8 ayes and 0 nays. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. Now moving right along, we have item 7A, analysis of bids and approval of contract for Pepsi Ice Center parking structure repairs. We've budgeted 15 minutes, roughly 15 minutes. There may be some further questions here. So I'll turn this over to our city manager and then we will ask for a motion.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. What I'd like to do tonight is just throw out their recommended motion, and that is that the bid for construction services for the Pepsi Ice Center parking structural repairs be awarded to Structural Preservation Systems, LLC, in the amount of $1,098,836. The contract be approved, the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the necessary documents, and any associated contracts approved in form and substance by the corporate council. As the city council may recall, we did have a bid opening last month. However, because of some various issues and to try to resolve those, there was a second solicitation of revised bids based on additional instructions. Changes were made. Primarily, we sought to give the vendors time to replace one of the large concrete beams, give them additional time in order to help just avoid any potential risk or problems that could associate in their bid for the work. So that was modified. They will have additional time. However, if this bid is awarded and as the weather cooperates, we do believe that most of the parking stalls can be reopened in the parking deck on or shortly before Thanksgiving. There is a very tight time schedule. The bidder will need some warm weather to complete this, but we feel very confident in the work of Walker Restoration and helping us not only with the specifications, but also with Holland and Knight, and Greg Meter is here tonight, who have also assisted us with a very complicated bid document and project to make these repairs. The city will be front-ending the funding for this particular repair, and then, as the council knows, we are seeking reimbursement through mediation and arbitration as called for in the construction documents for the Pepsi Ice Center parking garage. That is the recommendation. We do have various staff members, including Mr. Meter here. He and his office have been very involved in helping us with this project to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. And you're essentially asking, though, for approval of the
for that bid award in the amount I mentioned
and
to the
company. For purposes of
company.
discussion, before we move forward, do we have a motion and a second for approval? And then we'll discuss.
I'll make a motion that we approve this as presented to us.
Okay. Moved by Alderwoman Schmidt. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Black. Okay. Who would like to speak to this? So and I see how much time to allocate. Alderwoman Stearns? Okay.
Thank you. Regarding this very major project, clearly it is, it would seem to be the only and option going forward. It would not seem that there would be any other real, options for restoring this deck and getting it back to use, which I think everyone certainly understands the importance of that. I sent in some questions in general about the Coliseum and moving forward. Did you receive those questions? They're not on the questions.
There were a long, detailed set of answers. I did
Oh, really?
see them.
I
But
just
it might have been later this afternoon.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So it was on email, but it's not in print? Is that it? I mean, it's not printed here.
I think it was later this afternoon, correct?
Yeah, late this afternoon, I responded to those questions you had, and they were various ones you had on the Coliseum.
Okay, and
Yeah,
I got extremely busy working this afternoon, so I didn't get back to the email. But my question is, are those questions and responses in writing anywhere? I mean, they are?
They should be in the email, but we should.
But I mean, in hard writing, on a piece of paper, like these are.
Is there any reason why we can't put it in hard copy and print them out?
Well, let me just make sure. You asked 3 questions.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Yeah, and those are the ones that I responded late this afternoon in writing and by email. I don't think you're referring to another.
No.
I think it was a citizen that had 7 or 8 or 9 different questions.
No,
so,
I'm not.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the responses, and since I have them here, obviously I can print them out, or anyone could.
Sure, yeah.
But just as a question tonight, we have the other questions at council. I mean, I sent this about 5 o'clock this morning, but we have the other questions that council asked on the question sheet, but we don't have this, and I guess it was because of the lateness of the responses. Is that it?
Well, and your 3 questions didn't necessarily relate to anything specific on the agenda. So that's why it's not on the council agenda questions and answers.
Okay. Well, I definitely, I see your point. However, I do think it's critical to looking at the entire future of the Coliseum, where it's going with its, profitability, where it's going for the citizens of Bloomington, in terms of everything about it, considering, of course, that the citizens are very heavily involved in supporting the Coliseum, and as we make here a huge investment, and however that may go or whatever may happen there. I think it's very, very important, and I said this I think Kevin and I both, in April or May, when we approved the new hockey contract, that it's interesting regarding the contract with Siam, whether the terms of the contract are really being adhered to, and whether we are looking at how this contract is working for the citizens of Bloomington, the contract with Siam. My understanding was that by June 30th, and Kevin, you can help me maybe with this, that we would get back a detailed report on the contract, whether it could or should be renegotiated, given some of the changes, obviously the change going from professional to amateur hockey, and the apparent change in the basketball team and such things as that. So maybe you could just help me out, David. I appreciate your responses.
Didn't we get that?
Yes, and again, I just think that...
did we get the...
I thought so.
Yeah, I emailed it to all the council, including yourself, Alderwoman, those answers. But again, our understanding is that those issues that were brought up in the auditor's management report are the ones that we have taken action on, and I give you an explanation on that. We also indicate that the entire contract comes up and expires in about 2 years, even though there's some options for renewal.
Okay.
And that is something we'll be spending time going forward, looking at the terms and conditions of the current contract, but that is more of a function going forward as we prepare for renegotiations, not necessarily something that was going to be completed on or before June 30th, which is what we
report.
did with the
And
management
if I can
contract
actually, I'm going to go ahead and move to Alderman Sage, just because if we need to put this on a special session, this is really nothing to do with what we're approving tonight.
Well, I think it's very pertinent to the Coliseum as it goes
to the
forward.
Coliseum, but it's not relevant to really what we're talking about tonight. So Alderman Sage.
Yes, thanks, Mayor, because I'm going to comment on something on the agenda. And just to say, David, I do appreciate the quickness that you and staff have moved to try and get this corrected. This is a very complicated, obviously, we know that, a very complicated issue with a lot of folks involved. But do appreciate, again, kind of the leadership of the city manager and staff in getting this to the point where hopefully we can get this resolved during this construction season. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I think at this point, we're ready to vote on the contract. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to echo, I agree
Alderman
with
Lauer,
David.
excuse me.
And I want to take the time to do the due diligence here. David, I think we do expect further answers on Judy's topic there. I know this is probably maybe not at, in some schools of thought, not the proper time to bring it up, but, I do also expect further study on this and right away, because it is expensive and it is costing us money. You know that, so. Anyway.
And we can put it on another
Right, and maybe
agenda.
we should.
I'm
Mayor.
very happy to do
Yeah.
that if we
Okay.
still need some updates
Right.
and whatever. I mean,
Right.
it's just, this is dealing with a particular contract.
It is.
So we can put it on, let's talk.
Okay, great.
All right. Okay, can we go ahead and everyone vote then? Again, this is on the approval of this particular contract, the lowest bid contract for the Pepsi Ice Center. Okay. The motion carries 8-0. There are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. There we go. And then we move on to item 7B, application of Wierenberg, the Bloomington Galaxy Cinema located at 1111 Wiley Drive, requesting an entertainment license that would allow the sale of all types of alcohol by the glass for consumption. And again, this is an entertainment license of the new type that was developed. You can come forward. I'm just going to give a little bit of background information. We've been in discussions with actually our two cinemas that have been attempting to reinvent themselves. We know that the movie business is very difficult in this modern period, particularly in light of Netflix and kinds of instant streaming and whatever. And we did approve a couple of months ago about a $7 million expansion, a total retrofitting of the Palace. It's a different type of retrofitting than this. That one actually would have changed the entire cinema, and people could have ordered beer, wine, alcoholic beverages with dinner. It's a full dinner menu in all of the cinemas. This one differs in that 4 of the 14, they're 21 and only. Even if they're showing Bambi, you can't get in if you're not 21. And there's a control desk there as you come in. But it's also a full service. You can order a full meal, and actually, I guess you you can explain in a little more detail, but you'd order one alcoholic beverage per order, so you're not going there to get drunk. And also, you have a clean record for, I believe it's 3 years in Metro St. Louis of all your facilities, and you've had no violations.
Correct.
Okay, so that's some of the backdrop of the information, sort of the rationale. The Liquor Commission has dealt with this a couple times, and so that's kind of the backdrop from our end. And I will go ahead and turn it over to you to explain and then answer questions.
Would you like a motion?
Oh, excuse me. Can we have a motion? Yes.
I'd like to make a motion we approve as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by, motion made by Alderman Black, second by Alderwoman Schmidt. And I will turn it over to you. Thank you. And then I'll ask to see who wants to speak to this after you've presented. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, thank you for having us here tonight. I'm Bill Menke, Executive Vice President and COO of Wierenberg Theaters. Wierenberg Theaters has been around since 1906. It is currently the oldest family-owned and operated theater company in the country. We operate 16 locations in 4 states with 218 screens. And as the Mayor mentioned, we have been operating the niche concept of the 5-star dine-in concept in our theaters since 2010, October 2010. We have 3 locations with 7 screens that are equipped. We have just a few screens per location in the 3 complexes that we have. We have an 18-screen complex with 4 5-stars located within that complex. And the whole concept of the 5-star is that it's a 21 and older environment. We control that through age we vet everybody that comes through, whether you buy your tickets online or at the door. You must prove that you're 21 years of age or older using a state or a federally ID that has picture ID on it, as well as the barcoding or the security codes that would be on that. We would use an electronic ID checker that we would swipe your ID through that would verify that it is a valid ID. It's not an ID that has been somehow remanufactured by some creative college student or someone out there that would want to get into a 21 and older facility. We control the area of the 4 auditoriums that we're proposing to convert to the 5-star dine-in by having a kiosk that would be manned by employees, by management, at the head of the hallway where the 4 theaters are located. They're all clustered together in the north wing of our Galaxy 14 on Wiley Drive. If you come to our 5-star, of course, your IDs would be checked. Once you're greeted at the kiosk, you're then escorted in by one of our attendants to your assigned seats that you've reserved online or have been assigned when you come to our box office. Once you're seated, our wait staff gives you a nice menu that you can look at. We have a lighted menu.
But yeah, show us the light.
Yes, we'll show you the light. I have to flip it open. But you can press this, so in a darkened environment, you can see what's on the menu. A menu that's very comparable to your restaurants that you have here in town with appetizers, pizzas, sandwiches. We have desserts. We have adult cocktails, beverages, beer, wine, and you know, a good selection for all that would have specific taste. Whether you wanted a fried shrimp or calamari, if you wanted a cheeseburger, a mushroom burger, a lobster carbonara pizza. So we have a wide variety. So once you're seated, you're given the menu. When you're ready to place your order, you would press the call button at the assigned seats. Every one of our seats, whether it's the 41-seat auditorium up to 54 seats, each seat has its own individual call button. You would place your orders with the service host, at which time the orders would be transmitted back to the kitchen. You'd have your drinks out within 3 minutes, delivered to your seat, and food within 15 minutes of placement of your order. Now, the only place that you can order drinks are once you have been seated in the auditorium and you've been vetted that you're at least 21 years of age. So we have no alcoholic service that would be in the lobbies or service that could be taken into any of the other 10 theaters. And as I mentioned with our kiosk, and I believe, Mayor, we had sent out some of the brochures. Did the council get a chance to look at all of these? A lot of good pictures that show what we have. This particular picture here shows the kiosk that we'd have, or similar of nature, that would be manned by management and staff throughout the evening as we operate. So we would ensure that in this quadrant of 4 theaters, that everyone is 21 years of age or older that comes to the movies. And as you mentioned, if it's Bambi, you got to be 21. No exceptions. You can't bring your kids in. It's 21 or no admission. So with that said, that's sort of the concept. We've been very successful at what we've done. We've had no problems, no violations in our theaters. And you know, we like to run a very upscale operation, sit back in a nice leather lounger, heated seat back and bottom, and electric footrest, and watch a movie with a nice cocktail.
The only thing I wonder if we just could, to clarify for everyone and the audience, I think actually the council probably knows this, but each of the 4 theaters currently has about 150 seats, and you're going down to 40 to 50. So we shouldn't be thinking of it as a big crowded theater. It's more spacious, and there are fewer seats. And
Absolutely. In our design concept, basically we're taking out every other row of seating. Presently, our row spacing is at 4 feet. So we take out every other row. We level up the risers for the lounger seats so that you have an 8-foot row spacing. When the loungers are extended, it's approximately 66 inches with the footrest. So there's plenty of space for the server attendants and guests to, walk, to and from the auditorium if they need to go to the restroom or for whatever reason they need to leave. So, you can still stay reclined, not have to shuffle your feet around or move them around to let people walk through the aisle. In regards to the viewing to the screens are still going to be wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling, just like they are now. We're just improving raising the bar, no pun intended, Mayor, but we're raising the bar in the seating and the amenities that we have to offer. So all of the seating in the auditoriums are paired up in twos because we see that the audience that likes to use the five-star amenities, they typically come as couples. So in a 40-seat auditorium, you're going to have 20 pairs of seats. And it's not a place to come and get drunk. It's a place to come and enjoy a great movie and have an appetizer, have a sandwich, and a cocktail.
Let's see, since we have 1, 2, 3 people, again, I would ask you to approximately 3 minutes apiece. Start with Alderman Lauer and Sage, Painter, and Black.
Just a couple real simple questions and maybe a comment. How exactly are you segregating the 21 from the other theaters? Is it a separate entrance altogether, or are they going to be in the same lobby?
We have the 4 theaters that are to be branded the 5-star are located in the north corridor of the cinema. So when you enter our theater lobby, you would be directed to the kiosk in the north corridor. The kiosk will sit right at the head of the hallway, and then you have 2 theaters on either side of the hallway. So that would be your control point that we would man during the open operation of the theater. And that's where the ages are checked. We check if people buy tickets at the box office, their age is checked there, but then they're also directed down to the 5-star kiosk that's in the north hallway. So this is right at the head.
What I'm asking is, do you have a separate lobby? Is there a separate entrance for the 21 and older, or are you, in general, everyone goes into the same lobby?
That is correct.
It's not really segregated other than they're directed down the hall.
Right. Okay. But the difference is the area of seating, and once you're in the auditorium, anyone that passes our kiosk at the head of the hallway, and that area is roped off, and so you have the entrances to the 4 theaters immediately behind the kiosk.
You've got separate restrooms and separate facilities completely, so that they're going to continue to be segregated the entire time, or?
No, that is not the case. We have common restrooms.
Okay.
But from what we have done in our other theaters, we've had no problems with this whatsoever with having a common lobby and restrooms. But we do have the control point, so anyone entering, exiting that portion of the cinema, it is controlled by the person manning the kiosk.
Even after the movie's begun?
That's correct.
Okay.
Right, because we have call service. So if somebody wants to order something during the movie, the attendant at the kiosk has a screen that shows the seating for all 4 auditoriums and the call buttons that go off, and then they send the service host back in so that if something needs, if somebody wants a refill on a soda or a popcorn, we sell a refillable popcorn. So you can get popcorn refilled, your soda's refilled, water, that type of thing. But not alcoholic beverages. You have to buy those.
And the other question I have, you mentioned a little bit about the law enforcement presence. And we have had a history of that, and we have gone to some expense with buyback. In other words, we're bringing people in on overtime, et cetera. And you're footing part of the bill there, but I don't believe that we're really looking at the full expense when we get into a buyback issue, and we've got quite a problem downtown that still exists. So when you get into the full extent and look at the pensions and the benefits that go along with that, I'm still concerned that the taxpayer is footing part of the bill here. It's my perception. Thanks.
Alderman Sage.
Thank you. And first of all, in my email that I sent some questions in, I wanted to take just a moment to acknowledge the economic redevelopment part of this, and we appreciate that, I think. Anything that continues to grow a business is a good thing, and so we know you're investing some money in that, so that's worthwhile to be acknowledged, so thanks. I think you've answered, just in some of your subsequent comments here, you've answered some specific questions that I had, and I thank you for that. Let me ask you this, because I think Kevin touched on something that I think maybe didn't get answered. So if someone leaves the 5-star area, for whatever reason, how is readmittance? How does that happen? I mean, I'm assuming when somebody first goes in, they have a ticket stub and their ID gets scanned and so forth, and then they're inside within the 5-star perimeter, if you will. Someone has to leave for for whatever reason, personal break of some kind. So how do they get? Do they show a ticket stub or re-show their ID, or what happens when they get back in?
They should have their ticket stub with them. Yes,
Okay.
Number one. With us manning the kiosk, again, the traffic in and out of the auditoriums is minimal at best. You get that occasional guest that comes out to use the restroom.
Okay.
And by, the person manning that and visually seeing that they're going out and coming back in, it's very easy to control in that fashion. There's not that much traffic once the movie starts.
So, and again, you mentioned this, but it was almost in passing, so I just want to just be sure I'm clear. There will be no time where the kiosk would not be manned by an employee during operation hours.
Right, because again, we have an LCD screen there that has the grid of all the seating for 4 auditoriums. So whether it's starting the show or near the very end of the show, if somebody presses a button because they want to order dessert, we need to be manning that station all the time so that we give quick service to the guests.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Painter?
Thank you. That was a nice presentation. I appreciate all the work that you put into it. I do have some misgivings, however, about this. I love Warrenburg theaters.
Thank you.
Just the way they are. This business model that you presented seems like it would kind of divide families up. I envision parents bringing their kids and dumping them in one theater while they go off in another and enjoy themselves. And I just don't think that's real appealing. Also, we have another movie theater in town that is doing something similar, but it's more like a restaurant where you can see a movie. And I agreed to that reluctantly, but I just would like to see how that works out before we would try something like this. If you have anything to say to convince me otherwise, speak now.
Well, thank you for raising those questions. Number one, I've spent 46 years ushering in the theaters, so I finally got to head usher, number one. In the years of seeing the multiplexes grow, we offer a full palette of movies, whether they be the G-rated, PG, PG-13R. Very seldom do we see families come and say, okay, Junior, and take your baby sister and go see this movie. We're going to go see this movie. That may happen on occasion, but it's not the norm. And for our 5 stars, we target an audience of really, from 25 and older. The dating crowd, the couples, the married couples. Where we're really seeing the advantage of this is that young couples with small children, say, under the age of 5, they have a babysitter. Well, if we don't offer the 5-star and they want to go out to dinner and then see a movie, they may spend 6 hours out in the evening, paying the babysitter for 6-7 hours worth of time. Now they can come to the movie theater. We've got, plenty of free parking right at the front door. They come in, and within 3 hours, they've been able to get a nice appetizer or a sandwich or a pizza, whatever it might be. If they prefer alcoholic beverages, some people prefer the soft drinks and popcorn because they're refillable. But in 3 hours, they can enjoy their time out away from their kids. They can have a nice meal. Now, we're not a 4-star restaurant, even though we're a 5-star lounge, but most people, when they come to the movie theaters, they expect quick service. We are a fast food entity. We're not a knife and fork, steak and potatoes type of operation. And there are some of those operations around the country. But we prefer not to go that direction because most people tend to go to a movie, they show up 15 minutes before showtime, they want to grab their ticket, they want to get some concessions, they go down and see the movie. And for the most part, our 5-star customers have learned to show up 30 minutes ahead of time so that they can place their orders prior to the start of the movie. Their food's presented to them before the previews ever start, and usually they've consumed most of that food before the feature starts. So we've been very successful at that. I understand your concerns about someone coming and turning their kids loose while they go see another movie, but again, not all movies run the same amount of time. Some are an hour and a half, some are 2 hours, some are 3 hours. So that creates a problem there for control for us if we would see that happen. But that's not the experience that we've seen in 3.5 years.
Well, what kind of movies do you show that are different for these adults? Surely you're not showing adult movies, are you?
Well, yeah, using adult movies is a loose term, but we will show the top movies in the 5-star, but we still offer those movies on the other screens as well. So, we're not just putting them on the 5-star screen because it's a niche business that we know that there are discriminating adults that would like to have an environment free of children, free of teenagers, and be able to sit back in a nice lounger chair, have a nice cocktail, if that's their preference, or soft drink and popcorn, and order something off the menu that's a little bit different than the typical popcorn, candy, and soda. So again, it's worked out quite well for us. So the top pictures from Hollywood, with the exception of this weekend, the selection was not too good, but we always play the top pictures in the 5-star screens, but they also play on our other screens, just as we offer 2D and 3D. Not everybody prefers to see 3D. So we have a complete palette of what you can see. You can see the premium seating in the 5-star. You can see 2D or you can see 3D when a picture comes out. So no one will miss that in our complex. We have 14 screens, plus we have our mega screen, which is the biggest screen in this region.
Alderman Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for this presentation and investing in a well-established theater on the west side of town. I guess I have a question and then some comments, and I want to address Alderman Painter's concerns. My question is, so when at the kiosk, is 100% of the people coming in getting carded, or is it just people who look young like me?
You're going to get carded twice.
Yeah, I get carded twice. That's a smart idea. Who's that punk kid coming in here?
Heck, we'll put your photo up. And
that's right.
Sure.
That joker.
But no, we do check everyone. And
the mayor would get carded too, is what I'm hearing.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I like it when people card me.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That's right.
And I'm envisioning kind of one of those type of scanners that you see at the casinos where you flip it over and they got to have the right barcode and you
well,
make sure
you're
it's
right.
legitimate.
This scanner is just a slide type scanner so that the barcode or the magnetic swipe will go through. And there's several different providers of these. I mean, if you go online, gosh, there's a dozen different companies that manufacture them. But we would use one that is very reputable. They keep everything updated and such.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure. Thank you.
So this using the electronic ID is just reinforcement that we want to do a good job. I mean, we have had theaters in the past where we just look at the ID. We know that if it's September, 7th, for 1993, if that's the date, I'm pulling that out here and thinking, oh, that's close.
And that's good because I won't. I had some unscrupulous friends back in the day that would, dye their hair gray and wear a suit to go do their thing. So this is why it's important to scan because I knew the 40 line was where most.
I dye my hair gray.
Oh, trust me, we've seen some really poorly forged documents.
Well, I'm certain of that. I'm sure you have stories too. So
yes.
So that answers my question. You can if I'm being inaccurate in these next statements, you should let me know. But talking about kind of how the industry goes for entertainment nowadays, it's a very challenging field. It's a very challenging industry. The way that I consume media now is significantly different than it was 5 years ago. I mean, I go to movies so rarely nowadays because I have such easy access to Netflix. I can go to YouTube. I can go on iTunes. I mean, Hulu. I mean, the options are endless. And I know that movie theaters tend to be very expensive when it comes to these sorts of things, so I can wait a few months instead of having to go and spend an arm and a leg at the movie theater. However, we as a council, I think if we're not being proactive in the direction that the industry is going, we might be having a very difficult conversation a few years from now saying, why are some of our, kind of anchors in the community going under? And I don't want to set us up for a situation where that might happen. I think it's their economic incentive to make sure that they follow the rules and to make sure that everything is taken care of and is a safe environment where they're able to make money. They're not investing in this because it's going to be a charity for us. It's going to make money. And this sort of thing is provides a different experience than one can get for more recent releases. And whether it runs the gamut from Bambi, or I just saw Lucy over there the other weekend, or Transformers, I'm sure you'd have a diverse set of audiences that would be willing to try this out. And I think it's good that we see more of these theaters coming forward and trying to do something different. But I also think from a free market standpoint, it creates an opportunity for places that don't want to have a liquor license that say, you know what, we want to continue to maintain that, no liquor, we don't want to have to deal with that, and they have that option as well. So I look at it as our role to promote business in a very positive way, to acknowledge the industry trends in the businesses that we have in the community, and this is a response to something that's going on. And I think it's in the next 5 years, you're probably even looking more and more challenging to get people in the movie theaters, especially with as I would say, the declining quality of movies that are out these days. I think television's kind of become the main medium for adult entertainment, but not in that sense, though. But I think we need to be proactive, and I think this is a great example of where we have the opportunity to do so. And like I said, it's their economic incentive to avoid any kind of problems. And our concern is warranted. I think they've gone above and beyond to show us that they're going to keep everything controlled and in a fair manner. So I'm absolutely supportive of this.
Okay. See, we have two more now. A couple people have popped up. Alderwoman Stearns, and then Alderman Fruin, and then I think we're going to go ahead and vote because we're
sure. Thank you.
Time.
I just want to comment that those who...
I'm sorry, Alderwoman Stearns first.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Wasn't paying attention.
I apologize. I didn't make that clear.
Just a comment. When the other theater, your competitor on the far east side, that liquor license was approved, I clearly made the comment that, of course, obviously, you would no doubt follow suit as you had already requested, Warenberg had requested several years ago. So this to me is just it's a given that obviously you're here, and I appreciate your position on this. Mine really hasn't changed. It's just, to me, it's the economic development advantages of liquor in any venue, have a very high cost. And I believe we've certainly seen that in our community, and this may be peripheral, but we're losing another wonderful business downtown Bloomington. Because in my opinion, the proliferation of alcohol there has had some very negative effects. Now, I'm not saying that will happen at your theater. I feel certain probably that this will pass tonight, and I'm not doubting that the operation you run will be very well done. But for me, families have almost no options now for a venue where we just don't need liquor, and I think that's really sad. It's almost unimaginable to me raising a child these days with the concept that everything out there, ball games, you name it, now movie theaters, have to have alcohol. And I just think the costs of it are very high. And I think, and my position on it has not changed. But I appreciate your position as well, and thank you for being here.
Sure, of course.
Thank you for saying that, and I do understand, and I hope you realize that our plan is only for 4 of the 14 screens that we have, and we have controlled this and isolated this so that we know that we will not have anyone drinking under the age of 21. We've been successful at this with many people, and to address with you, at our De Pere 14, we installed 2 5-stars out of the 14 screens in June of 2012, and it has actually helped rejuvenate our business because the smaller auditoriums tend to sell out and then people go to the other auditoriums. And we've had no incidents there whatsoever. Same is true with our St. Charles 18, where we now have 4 5-stars. We have 8 auditoriums that we call suite seats. We don't serve alcohol in those, but it's still 21 and the suite seats are no age restriction whatsoever, and families can enjoy the big comfy seats there. So, but it's at a lower pricing point as well. So for us and within the industry, If you look at the trends of where attendance has gone for movies, we're totally dependent upon the movies that come from Hollywood. We don't make the movies, but we have to make the movie theaters comfortable. We have to offer amenities. And many of the people come to the Five Star because they can get that appetizer and such, and they don't have to wait 45 minutes at a bar or restaurant to get in. They can come see the movie and, have a nice evening out in about 3 hours. So, but I appreciate it, and we will do a fantastic job at running what we do. And, we invested on the west side in 2007, and I hope the council makes some type of economic growth out there to bring some good neighbors for us.
We're talking every day. Yeah.
We're holding the fort down, Mayor.
Thank you. And essentially, but if you go, right, and you don't want to, for some reason, sit next to somebody who might be ordering a beer, you can go to another theater.
Right. We have 10 non-alcoholic theaters there with almost 2,100 seats, 2,200 seats, in addition to where we've reduced the seating capacities.
Okay. Alderman Fruin, sorry, now you have the last word.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the reference to the 10 theaters that aren't serving alcohol.
Yes.
And that's kind of my comment here is that if our theaters were only limited to yours and, is it Carmike on Towanda Barnes? Then I'd be a little more concerned. But for those that want the traditional model, the non-alcohol, they still have other choices in the community. So this is one of those situations that you are putting at risk a substantial amount of money. And so I think there has to be a little bit of acceptance to that. And so this gives us a little more, I don't know if diversity is the right word, but a choice for moviegoers, whether you want to go to a place with alcohol or without. So I think that's helpful that you've got the split there. The other thing I'll mention is, did we get I always want to know if I've got all the information. Did we get a handout on this? Did everybody else get a handout? I don't remember seeing one.
You haven't gotten? Have you seen this?
I don't remember getting that.
In your box?
I looked at my box today and it wasn't in there, so.
Well, we can give you one real quick.
Yeah. Well, I'm comfortable with all the hearings we've had in the past when you came to the community with this conversation, with this material, but just for the record, I didn't know that existed, but I'm comfortable.
We'll make sure you get
I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and vote. An aye vote would be for approval. A nay vote would be against. Sorry. Why isn't it doing? Oh, there it is. Okay. Let's see. We have 6 ayes, 2 nays. Madam Clerk, would you announce the nays, please?
Nays are Alderman Lauer and Stearns.
Okay. Thank you very much, and appreciate your coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. And we're going to move right along to item 7C, the text amendment to Chapter 44 of Zoning Code of the City of Bloomington, and it deals with the authorized principal uses in each zoning district to address medical marijuana. And we have approximately 15 minutes budgeted for this, and I will go ahead and turn it over. Actually, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Frank, or do you want to say something?
I'm going to ask Frank Kaler to kind of just introduce this topic and also mention these changes that are being made or recommended in text amendments for the purposes of definitions and permitted uses for medical marijuana cultivation centers and dispensing organizations. Frank, would you just kind of give some highlights of this recommendation?
Thank you, City Manager Hale. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to be here. In 2013, the state of Illinois adopted the compassionate use of medical marijuana pilot program within the state, and they authorized the locating of up to 22 cultivation centers throughout the state and up to 60 dispensing facilities throughout the state, the location of which were predicated or restricted based upon state police barracks, so that while there will be more of those, each of those facilities in the Chicagoland area because of the population, McLean County in the general area would have one cultivation facility and one dispensing facility. So we're not talking about a multiplicity of facilities along those lines. The state legislation has specific restrictions. The cultivation centers not closer than 2,500 feet from daycare, schools, licensed preschool, daycare center, group care home, and what have you, or an area zoned for residential use. And there had to be a subsequent qualification to that. We have some zoning restrictions districts that allow for residential, even though that's not the primary use, such as in some of our commercial and business district areas. And so JCAR, the Joint Committee for Administrative Rules, which is part of the General Assembly, came up with some commentary on that, and so that the separation of those areas that are exclusively for residential, not necessarily those that would allow residential as a secondary activity. Distribution facilities have to be 1,000 feet from daycare, child care facilities, schools, and what have you. Could be adjacent to a residential area, but not within a residential area. And again, there was a qualification of that. It's an area which is predominantly residential, not where residential is of a secondary nature along those lines. How communities have reacted to that have varied. Some communities have taken a very restrictive role and suggested that cultivation centers and or dispensing facilities be special uses and subject to additional regulatory activities within their community. Now, the state did preempt home rule authority and said municipalities could enact some additional regulations but could not be overly restrictive. In essence, they could not prohibit these centers from going in. Planning Commission talked about the special use, and they thought treating it as a permitted use was the more appropriate way of going. I know Champaign is taking a similar approach to we are, amending their zoning ordinances by referencing it but not adopting any additional regulations. Communities such as Downers Grove have treated them as a special use, and has also have put those same locational restrictions from playgrounds and parks as they were from schools and daycare centers and what have you. Some communities have not taken any action, simply treating them dispensing facilities similar to a pharmacy, wherever those might be located within their town, cultivation centers as a agricultural type use, and wherever those may be allowed, subject to whatever regulations there are. The recent public hearing at McLean County for a cultivation center dealt not because of the unique nature of the medical marijuana aspect of it, but because that agricultural use was a special use within that zoning classification. They saw medical marijuana interior cultivation as no different than other interior agricultural uses and subject to a special use within that classification. We're taking recommending more of a common sense approach, at least referencing it within our zoning ordinance. And maybe it's the planner that comes out a little bit, that land use and planning really has always been the responsibility and the focal point of the municipality, notwithstanding that we are creatures of the state and we get their existence from them, and with a vote of the state legislature we could be out of business. But the land use decisions, at least our thoughts are, should rest with the municipality. And granted, we're treating these as permitted uses within zoning classifications, but at least we're taking the stance that reference them and provide some guidance within our zoning ordinance itself. And then there is finally in your packet, there is anybody who wishes to have a cultivation center and or dispensing facility in their application to the state must submit an application to the community, wherein the planner or zoning officer must say, yes, it is in compliance with the local regulations. There's a checkoff that also says that there are no zoning restrictions whatsoever, but at least it does provide guidance to the city planner, whomever that may be, that they can look and to see that that activity is an allowable use in that zoning district, and it's still going to be subject to the same locational restrictions as within the state legislation itself. So that's what the Planning Commission is recommending, that the cultivation facilities be treated as a permitted use in the M1 and M2 districts, and that the dispensing facilities be treated as a permitted use in the C1, 2, and 3, B1, 2, and 3, and M1 and M2 districts, subject to whatever locational restrictions that the state of Illinois has put in place.
And just to clarify, Frank, some communities have done as you said, but we also know that normal is just letting the state regs
That's
operate.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Is there, before we move to discussion and see who wants to speak, if anyone, is there a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Moved by Alderman Schmidt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Painter. Who'd like to speak to this, and we can decide how much time we have? Let's see. Black. Geez. Okay. Okay. If I can ask you to be as brief as possible, maybe about 2 minutes, since we've got several people. Thank you. Excuse me, start from my left to Kevin. So Alderman Black, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Frank, for the work that's gone into this. I think this is a pretty common sense approach to what we're trying to accomplish here. I know that it's not ultimately going to be our decision here in the municipality about what the direction the state goes with it, but I think this is a good place to start, and we can always adjust as time moves forward. And we talked about free market. We talked about people who are trying to get a business going. I know there's been a lot of interest. I think we've seen some emails to the city council about opening a dispensary and what that process would be. So this could potentially bring some new revenue to our community. And I'm reminded of the picture I saw from Colorado of the Girl Scout that parked herself outside of a dispensary and made a killing for that.
Well,
those sales. I don't think we're at that point.
Of course, there they have the recreational use, and this is more, prescription, high security.
Absolutely.
And you have to be a registered, you have to have a permit card, if you would, to be able to receive the product.
And I certainly understand that, but I think this is one of those things where, it starts out kind of at the medical level and may go in a different direction down the road, and I think that's kind of the feel you see in the polling and where things are going. But this is a common sense approach. I think this is what we need to be doing to lay the groundwork for success down the road. So thank you.
Just as an FYI, it's since this passed, Chris Coos and I and all the mayors I've talked about have our phones are ringing off the hook. People want us to weigh into this, and they want have their brother-in-law come talk to us. And both of us, we had said, hey, we're staying out of this. We're letting you know we're not going to throw roadblocks in it. We're not advocating that. So we've most of the mayors that I've spoken to have tried to just stay out of it. Alderwoman Stearns, you're next.
Thank you. The special use permit, I'm somewhat familiar with that process, and if I'm not mistaken, it requires a notification. That when we get in, I'm interested in you helping me clarify the special use. And if we did require, which you're not recommending, or Planning Commission's not, but if they did, then I believe notification would go out to the neighbors. I mean,
it would, and the concern of the Planning Commission was that without enacting any additional standards or regulations, it would create somewhat of a false sense of adjudication process that the Planning Commission and or City Council or Zoning Board, whatever the appropriate body might be, might deny the special use permit, but based on what? And they did not necessarily want to get into that emotional type of situation if it really came down to that, not wanting to make that decision should a medical marijuana dispensing facility be at a location or not at a location. So their thought was, if we're not enacting any additional regulations, let's simply reference it within our permitted standards, subject to whatever state standards there may be, and not subject to any additional regulations.
okay, and I want to say something else about special use, but I also want to ask you this question. So if the city of Bloomington had done nothing at all, had just not addressed this,
right, we
would be, we can't prevent this or outlaw it, clearly. We understand that. This is the law in the state of Illinois, and it's going to happen in places in Illinois. We understand that. But the question I have is, if we had completely left this open, just not even addressed it, then what? Then, I mean, what is different here? Are we making this, why are we enacting this instead of just letting the state of Illinois law sort of apply?
Again, it's a planner in me that land use regulations, permitted uses, special uses should be the purview of the local municipality. Granted, we don't have much say-so in this. It's whatever Springfield tells us to do.
Right.
But at least we've made an inclusion within our zoning ordinance. And at the end of the day, it's still our zoning ordinance. And even if we are replicating that which the state says, we still like to have a say-so in that prospect.
Well, personally, I'm kind of a fan of the special use process, simply because it would notify all of the neighbors, and there is great and grave concern about where this is going to be within a municipality. I've read a lot of the conversation about this around the state in the various municipalities. I believe Champaign, correct me if I'm wrong, is requiring a special use. I certainly think Chicago is, and heaven forbid that we would ever advocate anything Chicago does. But here's a case where the aldermen were extremely concerned. I read a lot of their comments and concerns about schools, about neighborhoods, about children. And I think when we bring neighbors in, can we deny a special use? Maybe, maybe not. But they can bring in their experience of living in a certain area, and they can say, hey, here's a daycare center we didn't know about. Here's something else that we as neighbors feel is critically important. So I would, in concluding this, further, I agree with Alderman Black, who mentioned that, gee, this is just a start, and we're on our way to, recreational, I guess. And I would agree that that is what this seems to do. And I think that we haven't even begun to imagine some of the negative effects that this is going to bring, to our municipality, to our state. That is my opinion. And one of the major controversies that no one even seems to be bringing up is the driving, whether we're going to have a lot more impaired drivers who are under the influence of marijuana, because a lot of the articles out there say that we are, because the state of Illinois has not yet really determined how we're going to judge whether a person is under the influence. We're going to use the same parameters that we use for DUI, and those parameters don't apply. Somewhere along the line, our police chief, it's been quite a while, a couple months, mentioned a case of influence of marijuana on a driver and the impact it had on a specific situation, which I appreciated. And I don't think we even have any concept of the effect this is going to have in our community, in our state, and heaven forbid, in my opinion, if it does become recreational. So I'm very, sad about this, but it's not up to us to say yes or no that it can or can't be. But at the very least, I'm advocating a special use permit in terms of neighborhood participation, the ability for neighbors to know, to understand, and to need to come to a meeting to approve or not approve a special use. So, I'd like to see this changed. I'd like to see this amended to require a special use permit. And that would be, that would be my suggestion.
Okay. Alderman Miller-Wamboy?
Okay. So Frank, you stated that and I think it's in here in the memo, that the applicant also has to apply for a local permit to make sure that they're in compliance.
It's a certification that it was in your packet that that the municipality must sign off on. It's called the Notice of Proper Zoning Form.
Certification. So there would not be a fee to that certification. Okay.
We've not indicated one. I've not heard of one. Certainly, if we wanted to come back and just look at business registration initiatives in their own right, that's something we can come back and visit should we move forward with this.
Okay. Thank you.
Last but not least, Alderman Lauer.
Well, I'm going to try to be really brief here. From an emotional, personal standpoint, I certainly understand the folks that are pro this issue, having lost two cousins in just over about 16 months in their early 60s. I would have leaped tall buildings if there was anything I thought I could do to ease their pain or to help with a cure of some kind. I don't think there's any proof, however, with cannabis. I'm sure it does ease the pain at some point. However, from a practical standpoint, as a representative of the people, I spent a fair amount of time with our current sheriff, our incoming sheriff, both John Sandage and his opponent, Jeff Elston, and have, as they do, very severe reservations, and they're not alone. I mean, I've even talked with a number of active and retired Bloomington police officers in the cadre. There's an awful lot of red tape in the state statute in terms of how to handle this product. There's an issue with the current burden of proof and the chain of custody with this product. We've got an issue with things that we are handling as best we can right now, even with prescription drugs that are dispensed out of a pharmacy. We have a number of our young people that are selling this and selling that out of the medicine cabinet. We know that, and this just adds to that issue. So I question the wisdom of the state legislature here. and I have to shake my head, and I'm really, quite frankly, disappointed. There's problems in the state of Colorado. There's problems on the West Coast with this, and I'm sure that I echo Judy's concerns that I think that we're going to add not only to our burden here in terms of law enforcement, but we're also going to add to our expense and probably be putting our officers at additional risk. And so from that standpoint, I really frown on this. I understand, and I certainly applaud the folks that have looked at this, including you and the Planning Commission. I had conversations with Rex Diamond extensively about this, and we thought about it and talked about it. I'm sure we're doing the best we can as a municipality at this point. But I hesitate to think about the problems that this is going to cause in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, we do have one last but not least, Alderwoman Schmidt.
I will make it brief, Mayor. I just think we need to be very clear about this. We're talking about medicine. We're not talking about people getting high. We're not talking about people getting drunk. We're not talking about people raiding their mom and dad's medicine chest for prescription drugs. Anybody who has lived with anyone who has a chronic pain, chronic illness will understand that this is a valuable tool in their arsenal. We heard from a woman the other evening at the Chiefs focus group meeting who was really pretty offended that people would think that she was doing this simply because she wanted to get high. She's in pain all the time. This is, there's a lot of research on this. I would have given anything if one of my loved ones could have had this to make his life a little bit easier. I appreciate all the legislation around it, and I'm happy to see it, and I appreciate your work on it, Frank. Thank you.
All right. Yes.
Just very briefly, I just want to add to one other comment about why the text amendment. The one thing that businesses look for is reliability. And last year and again this year, we're dealing with situations where businesses are questioning whether or not the zoning code specifically would allow their particular project. And so this particular text amendment brings clarity and specificity so that these uses are defined in the zoning code, and it showed where they are permitted. And I want to stress that because, again, when businesses are making millions of dollars in the case of some of these other projects, they need that reliability that it's not going to be vague or ambiguous as to whether or not it is a permitted use or any other types of use. So I just kind of wanted to stress that. It'll help ensure that when the zoning administrator, if this is passed, will know exactly. There's no interpretation as to where these facilities would be permitted and in what zones. So thank you.
And just to clarify, one of the reasons why all the mayors have decided, or not all, most of the mayors that I've spoken to decided to stay out of it is because we said some bureaucrat in Springfield is going to decide. And, that was anyway, let's all just vote. We have no choice on what the state does. So if we can go ahead and vote on this text amendment, please. Thank you. We have 8 ayes and there are no nays to announce, Madam Clerk. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will move right along to City Manager's discussion.
Mayor, I have nothing to report or add to tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Well, we may get out a little earlier than we thought. I would want to start out by recognizing that Emily Bell is going to have her 35th anniversary of working with the City of Bloomington on Wednesday. And as I saw her this afternoon, she had said, admitted to me she started here when she was 5. So anyway, congratulations, Emily. Thanks. And I also want to thank my colleagues, Alderman Lauer and Milawambwe and Painter for walking in the Labor Day Parade. And we had lots of candy. We did run out about that last block and a half, but it really went well. And Alderwoman Schmidt was there, but she was there with the bike book group. And just to clarify, the applications as they've been received have been scanned for the vacancy in Ward 8, and the deadline is tomorrow, and I would ask the council for their input as soon as possible afterwards, preferably by Wednesday, and then we would make a decision as I did before with the previous vacancy and announce it on Thursday. Okay? That depends on how many more applicants we get, though. It may not be possible to schedule all of the appointments. And at that point, Alderman, who'd like to speak? I'll go from my left to my right. Let's see who.
Mayor, just
with,
clarifying,
Alderman
when
Fruin.
will we receive the scanned
You
applications?
should receive them. The first ones came in today. There have been lots and lots and lots of people calling and texting and meeting with me, but the actual, the first 2 applicants that we received came in today. And so they should be scanned and out on the web, and there are hard copies in the alderman's chambers.
Are they out there now?
I believe so. Is Nora here? No, they're not.
Has anybody seen them?
Can we go ahead and, or is it just a matter of Xeroxing those things, right? Yes. If we could we do that and then make sure that they have, especially the ones that we have. Thank you.
And you'll make it clear when you want our response.
Yeah, preferably by the end of Wednesday if possible. If we have more if we have more than 2 or 3, then we may delay this, right, if we've got more. Okay.
I want to make sure that we get back to you, so.
As soon as possible, correct. And again, you can do it in whatever form you'd want. I mean, as last time, some people gave comments on all the candidates. We had 5 last time. And you can do it in either pros and cons, or if you have favorites. But certainly, if there's someone that you would like to exercise a veto over, I'd like to know that. Right, Alderman Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to take a moment and acknowledge that we, as a council, received some petitions that were signed from people through change.org regarding the banning of electronic music. And I know that we received a response over the weekend about that. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that and kind of get some understanding as to what the decision was, how was it made, and then maybe make a comment as well.
Yeah, there was no decision. Right. I mean, we've never decided that.
One, Siam has not banned, electronic dance music events in the Coliseum. They elected not to book Bass Nectar this fall, but that is not a banning of that or any other electronic dance music. Neither has the city officially put any pressure on Siam as to whether or not. We've had some, I think, very comprehensive protocols put in place in the past to deal with events like this and some of the emergency safety needs, but it's false to say that electronic dance music events have been banned from the Coliseum. That is not true.
Thank you, and I appreciate you mentioning that in public. I think that sometimes on the internet, sometimes forwarded emails tend to lack accuracy, and they tend to get muddled in fiction, so that this might definitely be a case of that. I will say that I had heard that the Coliseum was not interested in booking Bass Nectar this year. I know Bass Nectar is a very popular concert that had sold out, I believe, in the last 2 years. Is that correct? Something like that, or very near to capacity?
It certainly generated a lot of attendance.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I know that there's some costs associated with police enforcement and the concerns that you have there, but I'd be curious to know what that would compare to, say, a country concert in terms of DUIs or drunk people on the streets. I mean, when you have a venue that attracts that large numbers of people to an event with which you're going to have alcohol served and music playing, you're probably going to have that no matter what, whether it's electronic music, country music, or even, well, maybe to some extent classical music. So I worry that, if we're talking about making sure our Coliseum is successful financially, we talk about the parking deck issues, we talk about, wanting to see our investment thrive, we need to avoid trying to discriminate against acts that will come that will generate interest and generate revenue in our pockets. So definitely something to consider moving forward, and I appreciate the clarification.
Okay. Alderwoman Schmidt.
Yes, actually, a question for you, David. At our last council meeting, we voted down the proposed ordinance on carriage walks, and I think I'm not exactly sure where we are now with that, because we have residents who had carriage walks taken out. And so what is the next step here? Because one of the items within the proposed ordinance was for the city to replace those. Are we still going to go ahead and do that, or where do we stand now? We didn't kind of close the loop on that.
And that last statement you made is correct. If we went and removed a carriage walk from a residence where the property owner did not give us permission Maybe they just didn't respond one way or another. We will go back and offer, if they want us to reinstall it, we'll reinstall it, because they did not give us any verbal or written permission to remove that the first go-around.
We'll take the proactive
Yes,
outreach
to
them.
contact those. Now, again, many of them did say, yes, please remove it. Those won't be affected. But if someone did not give that affirmative, yes, please remove it, something to that nature, those will be the ones we'll go back and contact.
Alderwoman Stearns.
And I have that too, and I've already been told that they will be restored. One of mine was a handicapped person whose only access was the carriageway. And I'm really glad we're restoring them. Just a couple of questions. I see, David, that you sent the email out to answer my questions at 5:03. So I was hoping that since I got them in at 5 this morning, or maybe even 4:30, that, they would be answered along with everyone else's questions. And this is the sheet I'm talking about where everyone else's questions got answered. And I do want to ask Ms. Covert, if I could, whether this is a part of the record, the questions and answers that council, is this document part of the, I'm sorry? Okay, so can my questions and your answers be likewise put on the website?
I think the one difference is that they didn't have to do with the issue at hand.
Well, I think with all due respect, Mayor, I think it really is very relevant to the issue at hand.
Well, it has nothing to do with the Coliseum and fixing it,
Well,
right? I mean, it has to do with the
it has
operations
to
of the Coliseum.
do-
It's a separate issue, Alderwoman.
Well, I don't think it is.
I can see why that wouldn't be the city manager's first response. But anyway, I mean, I don't see why it can't be out there. But
Right,
again,
let's
as
just
I
put it
look
out
at
there and then we don't have to talk about it. Can we do that?
Then, absolutely, then we can make that
Okay,
out.
that'd be great.
Okay,
And that settles that. Thank you very much, Mayor.
sure.
And I guess, other than that, I had something else, but I think I forgot it. So thank you very much. We'll get that out there on the web.
Absolutely. Alderman Lauer.
Yeah, I would hope that her questions can be answered, and we can look at this in the very near future. Thank you.
Sure.
One thing on the positive note, I would like to invite the public out to Patriots Day celebration at Miller Park, which is in my neighborhood. I'm very proud of, and I guess I'm probably, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but I was actually witnessed the trade towers on just about 6 days prior to them being attacked. I was actually overnighting at Teterboro Airport right across the river, and was amazed and had made a special note to myself that I should bring a camera next time, because the sunrise against those buildings was just outstanding. It's one of the most beautiful things I think that I'll probably always remember. And then, of course, we know what happened. The one positive thing that really came out was that we came together as a country, and that's what we're trying to revisit on 9/11. Later, several months, I think it was underlined in my experience by flying over and being cleared across Lindy intersection, which is right on top of New York City, and I was able to look right down into the hole and look at the workers from an 18,000-foot perspective. We talk about that a lot here, and I actually did get to do that. It certainly brings a lot of emotion and a lot of patriotic feelings and mixed emotion, I guess. A lot of sorrow, and then to look at how it affected our country in the long term, and where we've come. And so I would like again to invite everyone out to our celebration on Patriots Day 9/11. That's this Thursday from 5 to 8. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you have another?
Mayor, can I add a comment? I didn't intend to add my 2 cents, but now I think I need to, with Alderman Black addressing the electronic music show. I think there were some emails, and I was a part of them. It's not apples and apples. It's not the Coliseum, but we did have a situation where we discouraged, that's the word I'll use, discouraged someone from coming into the community that we as a collective group did not want in our public library because of their viewpoints. And so I just want to make it clear that we have, in fact, in the past, discouraged some people from bringing their free speech to the community. I think it was done for the right reasons, and I supported that at that time, and I support them now. So There's a couple different issues floating around here, and I just want to make sure we do the sorting that is necessary.
Okay, all right. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Alderman Black. People didn't want to leave. Second by Alderman Schmidt. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carried.